Well, it's no fun when you forget your fundamentals, that is. And it's way easier to walk 20 yards in someone else's shoes than 100. Can the rejuvenated Packers defense keep it close enough in Pittsburgh to bounce back? We break it all down next on your Packers Fan Podcast.
Hey, Packers fans, this is your unofficial Packers Fan Podcast, and these are the podcasters you're looking for. One of these guys has been to the birthplace of Curly Lambeau, and the other guy, well, he has too. And now it's time to go, Pack, go, with your hosts, Wayne Henderson and Troy Heinritz.
Thanks for joining us for another fun edition of your Packers Fan Podcast, the show by fans and for fans of the 13-time NFL champion Green Bay Packers. Keep this phone number handy, especially here in the States, +1 920 3PACK-GO. We want to hear you after that Steelers game coming up this Sunday night, or simply go to PackersFanPodcast.com/feedback and let your feedback be heard. This time around, it's episode 146 of your Packers Fan Podcast, recorded November 22nd, 2017. And as always, the show notes will be at PackersFanPodcast.com/146.
On this week's edition, we'll be talking about what went wrong during that Packers loss to the Ravens. There were a few bright spots, though, from the game, and we'll be sure to point those out as well. Plus, you guessed it, more injuries. Oh, boy.
It's not a week of Packers football without more injuries. I'll share my favorite tidbits from the official Packers at Steelers dope sheet. Troy, you've got the keys that could help our Packers somehow beat the Steelers Sunday night, and we'll have your fabulous G-Force feedback. And boy, do you have a lot to say this particular week. Me, I'm at Wayne Henderson, the voice acting, podcasting part owner of your 13-time NFL champion Green Bay Packers, and I get really ticked off whenever somebody says, I think the Packers are tanking it just to get high draft picks. Stop it.
And if you're wondering, yes, Wayne has the flu, just like Brent Hundley did this week. And I'm praying silently. Go ahead.
All my talk about the flu, it happened.
Yes,
to me.
It sure did.
Playing hurt.
Praying silently that the game doesn't actually get flexed out of prime time. I am at Troy Heinritz, your gold ticket package holding part owner of your Green Bay Packers, because, well, it's Thanksgiving weekend, y'all, and I'm not going to be home till 6, so I want to see the game. The Packers Fan Podcast is available on demand and on the go with our free Packers Fan Podcast apps. It's available for both iOS and Android, and I guess we'll start with the interception by a HaHa Clinton Dix as the big highlight of the game. Really, really great to see us at least get one pick on defense, because the defense, for the most part, actually, Wayne, was pretty decent this game, I have to admit.
It's true they were pretty decent, but we're going to need a lot more than decent if our offense isn't rolling up double-digit points left and right. But yeah, HaHa's interception, that was a true interception, a thing of beauty.
Yeah, and you can't fault Demarius Randall on the touchdown, because that was one hell of a catch that guy made in traffic. I mean, Demarius Randall knew what size his underwear was. He knew what color it was. He knew what brand it was. He was draped all over him, and for him to catch that one football with one hand and be able to pull that in for touchdown, that's just one of those, yep, good play. Clap your hands, walk off, because you know what? That's only 10 points. We should have been able to score more on offense, so we can give them one.
Why not? Yeah, that was a heck of a play. Bravo to the Ravens on that one.
And the second touchdown was a give me, because we literally turned the ball over inside of our own 5. So, I mean, anybody can run the ball in from there and score a touchdown. So really the 2 touchdowns in this game weren't really, touchdowns. They were just kind of like, oh, they're there. And even still, that's 14 points. That should easily be overcome by a Green Bay Packers offense.
Relatively easily, you would think.
Yes.
Especially when AR-12's behind center, but we got a ways to go for that.
Especially when Devontae Adams, bang up day. Holy cow. Do you see the numbers he put up?
I didn't see the numbers, but I did notice that Devontae Adams was the other bright spot in this forgettable game.
Got long over 100 yards in this game. It was a pretty nice day for number 17. So hopefully we can keep that ball rolling, because that's something that we want to take advantage of. If he's going to have this kind of a breakout year, that obviously gives more 2-team double coverage things are going to slide over to Devontae, which then opens up Jordy and Randall Cobb in the passing game.
The only other bright spot I can really remember that jumps out at me was there was a pretty dang good punt in that game as well.
Yeah, there was one punt that was good. We still got to talk about special teams, but let's talk about who the top 5 players were out of this game. Of course, Devontae Adams, as we mentioned. Nick Perry actually had a pretty decent game as well on the pass rush. Jones was actually pretty good too, coming out of the secondary. Jahari Evans was actually really good on the offensive line. And then Brooks, who actually came back, actually had a pretty decent day as well. And he's going to have to really step it up because of the injury to Clay, depending on how that progresses throughout the week. I think Brooks is going to be one that we have to keep an eye on, along with Mr. Beagle, to see what they're going to do for the pass rush side of things.
Thank goodness Beagle's there. He may well save this game for us.
Now, I think what I saw out of this game was that Williams, where he didn't look good initially, and we went to Jones immediately because Williams wasn't looking great. I thought Williams did a pretty admirable job of establishing the run this week. Now, he's got a little bit of an issue on that right guard side, which is where a lot of the sacks were coming from, too, on Hundley's perspective. So we have to figure out what to do on the right side to do some double protection there. So, again, we're going to say, where the hell's Ripkowski for the extra blocks? But I think Williams did a fairly decent job. You know, I didn't get his exact numbers from the stat line to see where his average came out. But I thought just watching the game itself and the progression, he was helping move the football. He was breaking through the holes. He's cutting where he needed to cut. Obviously we have some issues with his backup, but if we can get Williams and Jones as our 2 running backs going forward, that's a pretty solid running game the Packers have for a very long distant future.
And in addition to having Ripkowski doing some blocking, if we'd give him the ball a little bit more, he might be able to get into a rhythm himself. I cannot believe I did not see Rip out there hardly at all after all the other injuries to the running backs.
And that's what I would be doing, right? Because we brought up Carriage, came up from the practice squad. He's now on the team as of Sunday. They literally brought him up on Sunday, and he was in the game on Sunday. So why not have Carriage play the fullback and then have Ripkowski take over as the backup while Jones is out to spell Williams? I think that's a better backfield situation, if you ask me, because I don't even remember the other guy's name is, Mays, that fumbled the ball twice. I mean, he just didn't, even carrying the ball, he looked uncomfortable in the offense. So if we can have Rip in there with Williams spelling each other with Carriage as the fullback, I think that's a better solution going forward, in my opinion.
Yeah, at least for the rest of this particular season, while we're patchworking the offense again and patchworking the defense again, we just got to find something that works a bit better, because things were looking pretty good at the end of that Bears game last week. Brett Hundley, we had a lot of hope in him, and this week it was like his worst game yet.
Yeah, and I don't know where that breakdown occurred, because for the most part, it looked like this was inexperience. So let's go ahead and go through the progression of the lowlights of the Brett Hundley day. Let's talk about that. We'll talk about that first interception. Okay, so I've looked at the tape, and what happens is you have 2 receivers to the left, one in the slot, one out wide. And the play is designed so that the slot receiver goes out and back to the back corner of the end zone. And while that's happening, the outside receiver is actually doing like a button L coming back into the cornerback, right? It's the short route. So what happens is that if you're an experienced quarterback like Rodgers, then you're actually waiting to see what happens to the cornerback, because he has 2 choices, right? He has the choice to either follow the man coming across the middle from the outside in, or he could step backwards and help out over the top with either the cornerback or the safety covering the slot receiver. And when you look at that interception, that's exactly what happens, right? The cornerback actually peels back to cover the guy heading for the corner for the post. And because of that, that's the person that Hundley doesn't see. That's the one that ends up getting the interception. The minute that cornerback pulls back to cover the slot receiver, the short route is completely open. So you can literally pump fake to the back corner and then dump it off short, and then the short guy could run it in, because at that point the cornerback's backpedaling. He won't be able to make up the ground. So this is just him not seeing the long-term vision of the play break down and going either to his first choice too quickly or sitting on it too long so that he lets the cornerback drape enough, and he has to put the ball on the mark, which is the back pylon. He can't put it short. He's got to hit that back pylon on that throw if he's going to go to the slot receiver. Otherwise, it's going to fall apart every time.
Yeah, and after being in the system with the Packers for almost 3 years now, I thought that would have made more sense. At least to Hundley. It was just frustrating that it wasn't working, and no matter what we tried, the Ravens had our number. Hundley made mistakes. I mean, I think even the second interception was his fault as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, he's literally in the pocket, and I think commend the offensive line. I mean, the offensive line, from what I saw, except for a few situations on the right guard, there's a lot of times that he had a pretty solid pocket for a long period of time. And I think in his mind, he's holding the ball too long. So when his internal clock goes off, he starts to scramble. And when he starts to scramble, he's actually doing the offensive line a disservice at that point. And when he gets out of the pocket, he's going backwards instead of going sideways or forward, as we talked about in previous weeks, where he needs to step up and then sprint forward. He's backpedaling. And as he's backpedaling, he's still looking to make a play, Aaron Rodgers style. The problem is that on that second interception, he's throwing it off of his back foot, literally trying to go across his body downfield. And when you do that, you have to put it in a spot where if you're going to try to make a play, it better be on the back shoulder, outside on the sideline. That way, if he can make a play, he can. Otherwise, it'll at least pull him out of bounds, or it'll throw out of bounds either way, depending on where you're targeting. He literally put it on the inside shoulder of the receiver, which of course is an interception every single time, especially throwing off your back foot because the ball is coming out flat on that arc.
Unbelievable. He's got a lot to look at on film and this and that, just trying to get ready for Sunday night, because obviously we're not going to make a quarterback change right now. So here's just hoping that Hundley takes these things to heart, watches the film as much as you did, and turns things around, because this was at Lambeau Field, and I haven't heard that many boos at Lambeau Field in maybe decades.
Yeah, it was a tough day for Hundley. But at the same time, I mean, I can't imagine how many pitchforks and torches I heard. Like, fire the whole coaching staff. McCarthy needs to be done. Thompson's can't do anything. Blah, blah, blah. It's like they moved the ball on offense fairly easily, and then we shot ourselves in the foot. So, I mean, literally this game came down to two things. It came down to fundamentals in the first half, where if Hundley was just better in his progressions, better in his thinking, better in his decision-making, then we wouldn't have the situations we were in. And, of course, taking care of the football when you're running the ball. But in the second half, the challenge there was field position. I mean, literally we were starting from, I think, an average of the 10.
Yeah, we couldn't get a break.
I know. It was, we get the ball. I think our offense is built in a way right now that we have to be starting at the 40 or 50 every single drive in order for Hundley to feel successful, because I don't think Hundley can sustain a 99-yard drive unless it's the hurry-up offense. I think a hurry-up offense is actually probably playing into Hundley's strengths more than it is to actually set up and think about it, because then the defense is so discombobulated, it allows Hundley to feel like he's got a little bit more time to find the hole that he needs in the passing game. So I'd love to see them come out and just go full bore, no huddle offense to start the game in Pittsburgh and see what that would bring.
That makes perfect sense to me as well. Why don't we seem to do that? Because it always seems to work for the Packers, at least to some degree.
I always felt that's what we were like back in, remember, 11, 12, 13. Anytime the Packers hit the field, it was like, we're going hurry up. We're going to score in 5 minutes. Every 5 minutes, touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. It's like, what happened to that kind of pace? I think that's the pace we need to get back to as an organization. Those quick slants, the quick dropouts, two-step drops, get the ball out quickly. I think that's more the offense we need to look for, especially when you're talking about the way Hundley's playing. If he can see the receiver immediately on the break, that's what we need to be hitting on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I think part of the boos that were happening at Lambeau the other day were for the play calling and for the tempo, not just for what Hundley was doing or not doing. I think they were just booing just everything, in addition just, the field position, the fundamentals, the defense, the offense, the mistakes. We've been spoiled as Packers fans for a long time, and so it doesn't take much to send some of the Packers quote-unquote faithful into a tizzy.
I also think, looking at it in that fourth quarter, I didn't feel the sense of urgency until about maybe 7 or 8 minutes left to go in the quarter. in the game, basically. I thought there would be a little bit more urgency, maybe 2 to 3 minutes left in the third quarter when we had the ball. It just seemed like we were very flat and still leading on the run, to be quite honest, instead of putting it in Hundley's hands. Granted, that's a McCarthy decision, right? Because he was throwing picks during the course of the day. You didn't know if he was going to be able to put the ball on the money. But at that point, what do you got to lose? You're already down 2 scores. Let him let the ball fly and see what he can make happen. It can't get much worse.
Yeah, to not score a single point. I mean, the last time we were shut out, it's been forever, right?
Yeah, 2006. I believe it was the New England game.
Of course, those pesky Patriots.
Yeah, why does it got to be the Patriots? 35-0, I believe that game was, and that was when Brett Favre actually got hurt. He goes out of the game, and then Rodgers comes in, and then Rodgers ends up getting hurt in that game, but somehow was able to play through it the rest of the way. So yeah, 2006 was the last time the Packers were ever shut out, and it's only happened 3 times in Packers history since 1992 when Favre started. So
that's a long time. I mean, we've been pretty blessed. So now that we have that out of our system,
but we were shut out at home. That's what hurts the most.
That is the fact that Lambeau, the people that you never know what's going to happen in a game, right? But when you buy a ticket to come see your Packers play at Lambeau, you've at least got a reasonable hope that we're going to win the game no matter who we're playing.
But the highlights, again, defense looked pretty solid. Run defense looked pretty good, which is a good sign going up against Pittsburgh next week because obviously we have Le'Veon Bell that we have to contend with. But for the most part, I thought 90% of the game itself was actually pretty decent. We were in the game until the fourth quarter. It's like the Saints also. It's like we're in these games, we just can't close. So now we got to figure out how to close. And if we can figure out how to close, then I think we'll be in good shape.
Yeah, because this is going to be definitely Brett Hundley's toughest test in Pittsburgh on a Sunday night. It doesn't get much harder than that. I don't even know if the Panthers game is as difficult as this one's going to be.
Agree. Whew. So shall we get into the G-Force? I know how we felt on Sunday. I can't imagine how everybody else is feeling right now.
There's a lot to talk about. Yes, let's crack open the listener voicemails. Thank you so much for callers giving us a call at +1 920 3PACK-GO.
Hey guys, this is Curtis from Fort Benning. I've been listening to a lot of call-ins to after the show, talk shows about the Packers and other podcasts, and what the other podcasters have had to say, and what other call-ins those podcasts have had to say. And it seems that, while this was an embarrassing loss to the Ravens, they want to go and burn down the entire Packers house. Fire Ted Thompson, fire Mike McCarthy, fire Don Capers, trade or cut Clay Matthews. Just what, is Rodgers going to want to come back to such an awful team? But I'd like to remind those guys that Aaron Rodgers is not dead. He's actually still fairly young for a quarterback. When we look at quarterbacks like Tom Brady, Eli Manning, even Peyton Manning, those are quarterbacks that have generally been able to play to a high level, getting into their upper 30s, early 40s. Even Brett Favre. We still have a half decade, if not more, of good times to come. And this organization, the Packers, is not dead. They aren't going to go back to the 80s, not anytime soon. Aaron Rodgers, if he was here, would be having a better season than Brett Hundley. I think that we can all acknowledge that. He would have probably won this game and several other games that Hundley has lost, using the same system that Hundley is using the same system of the Packers. And if he was here, would we be having the same conversations of burning down the house? I really don't think so. This system has worked up until this point very well. They couldn't have planned for Aaron Rodgers to get injured and be out for basically the entire season. And no top-tier NFL team can plan for that to happen. And they would be in the same situation, really, as we are. The Patriots won 3 out of 4 games last year, true, when Tom Brady had Deflategate. But they were able to plan, and let's face it, Bill Belichick is simply the best coach in the business right now. But any other team would be basically in the same situation. And we would have a better record and probably even be talking about championship if Rodgers was here, because he's that important to us. I think, this season, and we're going to do what we're going to do.
Go, Pack, go!
Curtis, thank you so very much for your call. So many excellent points in there, Troy.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's echoing the same thing we're saying, which is, for the most part, the offense was clicking. The offense was working. We were moving the ball. We had some basic fundamental rookie quarterback mistakes, which are going to happen. He doesn't have the game experience that Rodgers has. He doesn't have the depth that Rodgers has. He can't read the defense like Rodgers or Tony Romo from the booth can do.
True.
So I mean, this is all growing pains at this point, and the fact that we're actually getting, I think, more 15-yard passes or more downfield than we even got with Rodgers, I mean, bodes well for the arm strength that Hundley has. We just need to get him to be a little bit more accurate, and we need him to see the vision. We need him to be a little bit more timely with his, releasing the ball, seeing the receiver, seeing the open passing lanes. He's just hanging on the ball a little bit too long, which is the same criticism we say of Rodgers all the time. Rodgers, why are you hanging on the ball so long? Get rid of the ball. Get rid of the ball. That's his offensive line would love it better if he could get rid of the ball faster. I think these are all the same things we've said about Rodgers in the past. I just would say, take a look at the game again. Watch the game. By halftime at 6-0, there's no reason why you shouldn't be excited about that score, because to only be 6-0 with 4 turnovers in the first half, I think that's a pretty damn good game.
Yeah, because 1 touchdown and an extra point, and we would have been in the lead even after all of that. So, yeah, it's tough to put it in the right perspective, but at the same time, Curtis, I have to thank you for calling back with that quick PS with the tuba and the Go Pack Go. That was incredible.
That was fantastic. Get you in the mood.
Hey, tubas always get you in Packers mood, and playing the dun da da dun dun Go Pack Go. That's what we need right now. I think the team should listen to Curtis on the tuba with the Go Pack Go, and then Aiden's Go Pack Go at the end of the podcast. I think that alone should get us at least 10 more points next week.
Hey, Wayne. Hey, Troy. This is Scott, a Packer fan and listener in Rockford, Illinois. I made the trek up to Lambeau this weekend and thought I'd share some of my experience with you. It was a hard game to watch. As you guys know, you all saw the score with me, but I still was able to have a really good time. It was very cool to take a friend of mine to the game who has never been to an NFL game at all. So that was definitely a fun experience to have someone see Lambeau for the first time as their first NFL game. I took him around the perimeter of the field, not the field, but the walkway inside there. Showed him the atrium. It was a really good experience for him. Had a lot of fun. Also, man, there's just something so cool about being part of the good vibes at Lambeau. There's a lot of Ravens fans there, and as you guys know, because you've been there, Packer fans are nice to other fans, even Bears fans, and it was just very cool to be a part of that. I talked to several Ravens fans and asked them where they were from, and just being nice to them is something that I feel like a lot of people aren't used to. So the other thing is that even after the shutout, Lambeau Field is still an incredible place to be. Walking outside and seeing everybody tailgating, everybody was still having a grand old time. You never would have known that they lost the game, especially getting shut out, because everyone was just dancing and partying and eating and drinking and carrying on. It was awesome. The last memory I wanted to share with you too is there was a guy actually in my section in the row behind us, Ravens fan, completely dressed like the Predator, and it was a very cool costume because we happened to see him at a restaurant before we went to eat as well. And he just kind of sat on the bench and watched the game, stared, didn't say anything, didn't cheer, just very creepily stared forward at the game. It was kind of surreal. So I did want to share one thing about the game. Listening to the radio on the way home, everybody wants to move past Hundley already, and I think that's a mistake. I really am proud of Mike McCarthy for sticking to his guns and saying that he is their quarterback. I'm sorry, but Callahan is no Trubisky. So but we got to stick with Hundley. I think Hundley got a bit overconfident after his first win against the team in last place and came back assuming he'd do the same against Baltimore. And I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, but I seriously think that we need to accept the fact that the playoffs aren't going to happen, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I know what you're thinking, but hear me out. A lot of people are chanting, bring back Rodgers, and I'm of the mindset that he needs to heal and recover, and putting Aaron in the playoffs is a big risk. Let him heal up, come back next season. Otherwise, we run the risk of not having him at all next season. Just my 2 cents. Thanks for taking my call, guys. Really enjoying the show, and go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go, indeed. Thanks so much, Scott. No, I think if there's a possibility that we can still make the playoffs, there's a very good scenario where we can still make the playoffs. And if that's the case, then you do bring Rodgers back if he's able to go. It is his throwing shoulder, so you have to see what that is. It's not just about the bone healing. It's about, do you have the full motion? Can you make the same passes? Because then you have to install a completely different game plan if you do bring him back in based on what he's able to actually complete. I don't think he's going to be chucking any Hail Marys anytime soon, and you might need one of those to win a game down the stretch, especially when it comes to Packers times. But I think at the end of the day, if he is ready to play, you play him, because even if he tears something in the shoulder, you can still have off-season surgery and be ready for training camp next year. So if he's ready to go, you got to put him in the game. That's Doc McKenzie's call. I know they'll make the right decisions. It's the franchise quarterback. He's got the contract. But yeah, if he's ready to go, you absolutely put him in. It's just not about settling for 8-8. We have to do everything we can to finish 11-5, and it's still very possible to be done. And I think that's really what the target should be.
Once Rodgers is medically cleared, can the doctors tell if he is able to throw, or is that solely just something that we find out from Aaron himself as he tries to do it?
Well, I'm sure that there's a minimum, motion that they have to say, yes, you're good enough to play. And the docs can obviously see that, but Aaron's going to know if he is ready to play. He's going to know what he's capable of. And if he doesn't feel like he's 100% to be back on the field, I'm sure he will most definitely say something. I know he's a competitor and he's going to itch to get back out there, but if he normally, makes a 60-yard, I'm making numbers up, 60-yard throw, on the bullseye without a problem, and he's off by 10 degrees or he's off by 5 yards, I'm sure he's going to say, you know what? No, guys, I'm just not there yet. So I think, he's on the IR. Just depends on when they bring him back. There's no saying he has to practice a certain number of weeks after coming off the IR. He just has to be on the IR for the designated time, which means week 15 is when he can come back logistically. Now, whether he can come back physically is the question. So we just got to wait and see.
All right. The waiting is the hardest part, as Tom Petty used to say. And a couple more. Yes, he did. Great song. A couple more great points about Scott. Scott, again, thank you for your call. You can hear more from Scott on his Gaming Outsider podcast. He does a great job over there. And he brought up a point that I think every time I travel up to Green Bay, like once every 3 years or so, is everybody seems nicer. Almost everybody just seems nicer. I did not see too many chummy Rams fans talking with Seahawks fans. There were some, but generally there were fights. At Lambeau Field, we were nice to Bears fans. They were nice to us. And I love hearing Scott's story about the Ravens fan wearing the Predator outfit. I saw the photo in Scott's Facebook feed, and it's like, that's intimidating.
It was pretty creepy. I have to say, very nice job on that costume. That was really, really good.
Yeah. So great stories. Thanks again for that, Scott.
I wonder if he disappears in the third quarter to take a nap.
I wonder if he goes up to do a little competition with Clay Matthews with the move.
Or with the hairstyle.
That's true. We got all that going on with Clay Matthews and an injury.
All right. Well, Steven checked in on email and said, seriously, last Sunday we were riding high against the Chicago Bears, but today we played and lost 23-0. Thanks for the reminder, Steven. Against the Baltimore Ravens. And even though the Chicago Bears scored 24 points and a loss against the Detroit Lions, Next week, we're going to get embarrassed on Sunday Night Football against the Pittsburgh Steelers. We need to score more points soon, and we need to get some wins. Otherwise, we can kiss the playoffs goodbye. From what I see on Wikipedia, the last time the Packers missed the playoffs was 2008, and that year was the first year of Aaron Rodgers and G.W. Bush in his final year as president of the United States. Barack Obama was elected president, and don't even get me started about our current president. And when the Packers fail to make the playoffs, who is going to be blamed? It seems to me that it might be time for Brett Hundley to go. And it is sure time for Dom Capers to go. What do you think when the defense allows 23 points for the opposing team to score? There has to be a better defense mind coaches out there, and he is terrible as a head coach, so I hope he never at any point gets considered to be the head coach for the Packers. Did the Minnesota Vikings get tired of us winning the division pretty much every year since 2009, and that's why they purposely went and injured Aaron Rodgers? In the perfect world, the Packers will beat the Steelers next week, but I seriously doubt that's going to happen. And after next week's game, we only have one game left at night, and that is on December 23rd at home against the Minnesota Vikings. It'd be great if we can get revenge on them at that time, but now it doesn't seem like it'll happen. So Steven's obviously in one of those terrible mood people coming out of this game. The Dom Capers thing is interesting. It's up, it's down, it's up, it's down. Honestly, the defense, 23 points to me is good. And really, it was only 16 points because that last touchdown was garbage because we turned the ball over. We don't turn the ball over, they don't score that touchdown. So 16 points for, the way we were playing, I think is a pretty damn good day. The defense, I think, has every reason to be proud of their output because they were on the field a long time. This is a team that literally, 40 minutes or so they were out there on the field, and that's a long time for a defense to be on the field.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the other way around, especially at Lambeau Field.
Yeah, so I have no qualms in the defense. Defense gets a solid, B- for me this week. There's still some issues in the secondary, of course, but it is what it is. And now Demarius Randall's hurt, so we'll see how that plays out. Kevin King was obviously out this game, so we're missing there. Things are in flux, and it's going to be what it is. But I have no doubt in my mind that they will correct what they need to correct, and if they have a good game plan going into Pittsburgh, then we should be able to come out with at least not an embarrassment on national TV, because I don't think this is going to be the Falcons in the NFC Championship game. That was an embarrassment. If you go back to the Falcons of this year, I think that was also an embarrassment. I don't think we're talking that kind of embarrassment this week. I think we correct the problems, and I think we go out and play solid football because there was solid football played against the Ravens. Now, granted, the Ravens aren't the greatest team in the world either, so this will be a true test. And if we truly fail this test, well, then, yeah, we don't belong in the playoffs because we won't last that long. So let's just it'll make it easier on Wayne and I. We don't have to do another show then. We can say Happy New Year and go watch the Badgers win the college football playoffs.
I want to do as many episodes of the podcast as I can. I'm going to ride that wave.
Exactly.
And I know that even at the end of last season, when our defense had a lot of issues, we were giving Dom Capers some slack because who possibly could coach with that many injuries? But I don't know. I'm going to side with Steven just on that part that I think Dom Capers, it's time for him to go. We need somebody with new ideas, fresh ideas. I have a feeling that will probably happen, but I don't see Mike McCarthy getting fired or Mark Murphy and Ted Thompson being stripped of their duties or anything like that. Nothing would surprise me. There's been some crazy things happening in the NFL, but until we are officially, mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, I'm never going to give up. I even saw a stat today that said that, believe it or not, even the 0-10 Cleveland Browns could still make the playoffs if 46 different things happen.
That's a lot of hope.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. But, mathematically, it's hard to believe that even the 0-10 Browns are alive. Unbelievable.
It's that sad to think that a 6-10 team would be able to make the playoffs. We got bigger problems if that happens.
True. Now, I had a hard time coming up with the right question to post out on the Monday Facebook group and Twitter poll. Finally settled on this. I knew I was asking for trouble when I posed the question, what needs to change in order for our Packers to beat the Steelers next Sunday night? And 40% of the people that voted said that starting Joe Callahan at quarterback might be the answer. 24% voted and said the defense must step up even further. 9% of the voters voted at Packers Fan Pod and in our Packers Fan Podcast Facebook community group that Ty Montgomery needs to be healthy enough to play because that could be the difference maker. Surprisingly, 27% of the people that voted said other, and most of those said, there's no way in heck we're going to win. It ain't going to happen. 0% chance. Yada, yada, yada. Sky is falling. No chance. Wow. But
well, I will tell you that I agree with 33% of you out there. I will tell you that the defense has to play absolutely perfect lights out football against the Steelers to even have a chance at winning. And I absolutely think Ty Montgomery needs to be 100% healthy to help the running game and give him a out of the backfield passing option in the game plan, because that's really what's going to help Hundley. An established ground game, being able to run the football to open up the passing game and make the lanes happen that we need. And if Ty Montgomery's healthy, that's a big boost to that opportunity happening.
Agreed. Caleb Fisher replied saying, I'm getting tired of losing. Me too. Please have Callahan start just until AR12 comes back. However, at GoPack1265, love that Twitter handle, was the opposite and replied with, the Packers need to stay with Hundley. Callahan is not the answer. The failures of the Packers is directly on the shoulders of the coach. He's not very good. And the GM, he hasn't done a good job getting the right players in the key positions. But right now, it's on Mark Murphy to act.
Wow. Big, strong words. I think the coaches are doing what they can with what they have. I don't think anybody's able to turn on a dime an entire team midway through the season when they have a game plan one way or the other. So I don't think it's a coaching issue. I also don't think it's a Ted Thompson issue. I mean, look, Jones was a bright star until he got hurt. That was Ted Thompson. He drafted Jones. Tyler Davis is a Ted Thompson draft. We actually have a chance to have a explosive return game now, thanks to him being drafted. Aaron Rodgers came into the mix. That was a Ted Thompson pick. So Ted Thompson, I think he's had some issues in free agency and trades because that's not what we do as the Packers organization, and those have not panned out. We build through the draft. And I think our draft has always been pretty decent. So the people that are like, oh, there's another, number one draft pick of Ted Thompson's that got injured, when they fall somewhere else on another team, who cares? They're on another team. We're talking Packers football here. So, and I think right now the team that we have is actually a really decently well put together team. We just need them all to be healthy at the same time. And that would
be magic.
make a much better decision. Now, with the Hundley-Callahan situation, might I remind you that Joe Callahan was cut from the team? Do people forget about that? I'm just putting that out there, that Taysom Hill was the second coming of Jesus Christ in a lot of ways this preseason. They were like, Taysom Hill's better than Brett Hundley. Let's have Taysom Hill come do it. Well, Taysom Hill was waived, and he was picked up off of waivers because he looked that good, and that's what happens. So when Taysom Hill was picked up off of waivers, we had to bring back Joe Callahan because we needed to have a third quarterback for the practice squad. So I'm just going to remind you that Taysom Hill was better than Joe Callahan. And if Taysom Hill was better than Joe Callahan, Brett Hundley was still better than Joe Callahan. So yeah, everybody has a bad day. You go to work, you have a bad day. It happens. Brush it off. You see what you do again next week. And if he comes back and has another bad day, well, then we'll talk about it. But one bad day, everybody's allowed to have it sometimes. They just have the flu, as Wayne always says.
Hey, we're kind of hoping the Steelers might catch the flu this week. Just saying. I do miss Taysom Hill. I thought for sure we were going to keep him on the team, but man, he was snatched up quick. I'm thinking, of course, we're going to go with Hundley this week versus the Steelers. He's got to be better than he was this past week, and I do think that he will be. If he is worse than he was this past week, I think what the heck?
You have a conversation about it.
Yeah, we'll have that conversation about Joe Callahan. Not Kaepernick. Stop it.
I hear Tony Romo's available.
He's busy and doing a great job. I don't want to take him off my TV screen on CBS broadcasted games. Now, in our Packers Fan Podcast Facebook group, we also had some great comments in there. First off, we heard from Dawn Lejeune, a.k.a. Granny Cheese. She says that a lot has to change. First and foremost, in my opinion, figure out why we are having so many injuries, because I feel like if we had those out without the injuries, our team would come together for the better.
Can I have an amen?
Amen. Put your hands on your podcast player and say, yeah. They need to learn to play as a team. They are seriously struggling, and at this point, only God knows. We just need to support our team and keep telling them, go, Pack, go. Always believe, always hope. Well said, Granny Cheese.
Brett Connor in the UK also chimed in and said, it's not possible to trade a first-round draft pick for another bye week.
Let's look into that. This week, or Carolina could be another week. We could use the bye. Trade those picks.
Just a Monday night game. Just get the extra day off would be nice. Peter Allison also chimed in. It's time for a shakeup at the end of the season. Mike McCarthy has proven that he's a poor coach without Rodgers. What annoys me most, though, is his ability to continue with the same bad practices that have failed year after year. I don't understand this from the back. Like, I have hats. I literally have hats on my desk at work where I have 5 NFC North division titles since we last won the Super Bowl. Like, I know that it's not a Super Bowl, but we've been to 2 NFC championship games. We've been in the playoffs every year since 2009. Like, that's not because these coaches are terrible. Okay, these are good coaches. And yes, it's a little frustrating right now, but we can't be jumping on the bandwagon every single time somebody makes a mistake. Now Dom Capers, yeah, the scheme's a little bit outdated. I think we need to get some fresh perspective in there. Absolutely. Is he a bad coach? No, he's not a bad coach. He's an outdated coach, but he's not a bad coach.
Well said. That's probably the best way to put it.
You know, and you have to have that rookie mindset. I mean, that's what we talk about a lot. Even in our own careers, as we go through our jobs, you know, sometimes you get a little bit complacent in your job. You're in there 10, 12, 15 years at the company, and you're just kind of like doing the motions, and it is what it is. And
yelling
at the paycheck.
Yelling at the new kids to get off my lawn.
Exactly. So, but the problem is that those new kids are trying to challenge the system because they have the rookie mindset, and we need to have Capers get back to what really excited him about defenses and get that rookie mindset back in, because he's a good coach. So, you know, I think we need to get off the coaches and get back to the fact of what is wrong with the injury problem. That's 3 years in a row that we've had an injury problem. You know, I know people were picking on McKenzie and the whole Martellus Bennett situation and whatever. I don't think it's Doc McKenzie's issue, but there's an issue with either training or hygiene or diet or something. Something is wrong in the Packers organization to have as many injuries as we have over the last 3 years. That's the problem we need to fix. And I think everything else goes away because we have a solid team that we can field every single week.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about the injury thing like Granny Cheese brought up again. I cannot fathom what on earth could be changed that could fix that if the Packers just are super unfortunate, or if there is something that could be changed. Because if there is something that can be changed, that's the number one thing that needs to change.
Yeah. I don't know what it is, and I don't know if it's NFLPA and these new rules and practice now, can't practice then, and all this other stuff. Pads, no pads. I don't know what it is, but the injury problem is the problem. I'll go on the record right now. That is the problem. It's not the coaches. It's not the game plan. It's not the scheme. It is injuries that are the problem, because if we had the same 5 offensive linemen out there every single week, if you had Balaga out there, not on injured reserve, you would have a much different outcome with Hundley not being sacked every 3 plays in this game.
Well, in fact,
18 pressures. I think it was. That's a lot. I mean, he's got to have time to throw the football, guys.
And if our entire offensive line could have been healthy the whole year, Rodgers may not have even been injured. So,
correct.
Speaking of injuries, what's the latest, Troy?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Oh boy,
for the Packers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the Steelers.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So that's the problem. Ahmad Brooks was on the report but participated fully. Morgan Burnett is back at full participation. Kenny Clark did not practice today.
That hurts.
Quentin Dial limited, but was out there a couple times. Aaron Jones still out, obviously. He's got about maybe 2 more weeks before he'll be back in the swing of things. Kevin King was kind of jogging out there, not a full participant today. Clay Matthews sat it out, so got to keep an eye on Clay. Devontae Mays, even though he fumbled the football, he is limited with an ankle injury now. Justin McCray at guard, also a knee problem. And then you have Ty Montgomery with the ribs, still not a participant at practice today. And then, of course, Nick Perry, a limited participant with a foot. So you're going to be looking for Mr. Brooks and Mr. Beagle, I think, to be our pass rushers against Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers in the Iron Curtain.
And Antonio Brown.
Oh, don't remind me.
Oh, okay.
I get beat by that. I got to play him in my fantasy league this week. Go, Pat, go.
Go, Pat, go for sure. But although I don't like to see people injured, I've been hearing this season Juju Smith-Schuster, which is a great name, wide receiver on the Steelers. He did not participate. He's struggling with a hamstring issue. But, of course, they still have Antonio Brown. So,
yeah, then this does help because then we can double up on Brown because after that the receivers are a little bit sparse in the swing of things for the Steelers. So if we can get the pass rush going and then, of course, double team on Brown, with if Juju doesn't go, then we should be okay. But I picked up Juju for my fantasy team, so I'm kind of like, Juju, come on. But if he doesn't play, I would not be heartbroken this week. I'll take a fantasy loss just for the team.
Thanks, Troy.
On Sunday, in case you missed it, Joe Carriage was brought up to the active roster from the practice squad. Spriggs was activated from reserve injured, designated for return, so that's a good thing. So that'll get us some depth back at the offensive line because Brian Bulaga is officially done for the year.
Oh, my goodness.
So he tried to make a go of it as best he could, but no, Brian is done because there's not enough weeks left to pull him back from injured reserve. And because if we pull him back from injured reserve, then we couldn't pull back Rodgers. So sorry, Brian.
Yeah, we have to weigh those options. And yeah, let's go that route. See you next year, Brian.
Yep. So Spriggs will be back. And then obviously Brian will be playing next year. And then we also signed a tackle, Francis Callan, to the practice squad just today. So
okay.
Offensive line, moving and shaking.
Never know who's going to be out there. It's a mystery. And I saw a headline the other day that in addition to Packers fans and Packers being frustrated with the fact that we were shut out, I guess it has an effect on the beer industry in Wisconsin.
It sure does.
To a level.
There is a bar that serves free beer. And this has been the bar's stance for a long time. Like literally free beer until the Packers score. Now, since the Aaron Rodgers era, you have to remember that Aaron Rodgers has always had a very easy way of scoring. Like first 5 minutes, okay, it's all over. So, I mean, we're literally at that point where you never expect to be shut out. I mean, it's only happened 3 times since 1992. So it's something that we really have to be excited about. So this bar, unfortunately, because we didn't score, literally had the problem of paying out beer all day for free.
Wow. I hope the people were at least tipping very well.
Yeah. I mean, Rodgers, since he's been there, over Green Bay's first 9 games, the Packers scored in the first quarter 6 times. The worst hit for the beer house came in week 1 when Green Bay didn't score until about 5 minutes had elapsed in the third quarter against the Seahawks. So the promotion actually starts at kickoff, and it remains viable even after Rodgers went down with the collarbone injury. So this one was a lot of beer. The beer house general manager, Scott Bell, told WTMJ Radio that the restaurant served between 275 and 300 servings of free beer to 200 people who were taking in the game. He added that he has no plans to halt the promotion after the Packers' offensive power outage. Wisconsinites and Packers fans are at least somewhat responsible, Bell said. Now, yeah, because, I mean, if you think about it, that's 200 people, 300 beers. That's, beer and a quarter a person. So that's not so bad.
No, that's really not at all. I would have pictured it being far worse. Like a couple years ago when I went to the playoff game where the Packers traveled to Phoenix and played the Arizona Cardinals. A Cardinals fan next to me, I think that man alone had 11 or 12 beers. So he would have really cashed in. But since he's a Cardinals fan, he wouldn't have been there. So they lucked out there.
Now, assume it's like, cheap beer in Wisconsin. You're talking $5 a beer. That's $1,500 that you missed out on 300 servings of beer. But obviously they don't, pay $1,500 for the beer. So.
And it's good publicity.
Absolutely. You got the name in the paper. More people will be coming to the bar now.
They're going to be there Sunday night.
Yep, and it's in suburban Milwaukee. That's the Bavarian Beer House. So check it out. If you want free beer for at least a quarter on Sunday night, there you go.
Please no shutouts, Packers, please.
For the sake of the beer house. We don't want them to go under by the end of the season.
Oh, my goodness. That's a lot of beer. Well, what can the Packers do to make sure that doesn't happen and we score some points and win the game?
Well, I've touched on a few of these already, but number one, we need to establish the ground game early in Pittsburgh. They've got a very good defense, and the Packers must have a productive game on the ground in order to take the pressure off of one Brett Hundley. Montgomery may also have to take up some carries away from Williams because we need both of them to overperform this Sunday. So hopefully Montgomery can bounce back. Obviously didn't participate today. Doesn't mean he couldn't by the end of the week. So keep an eye on Montgomery's practice report situation, because otherwise I say we go with the Kara-Dripkowski-Williams idea.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't trust the other guy. Number two, Hundley must not turn the football over. I know that's a shocking one, but if he cuts down the turnovers, we're going to be able to have a little bit more of a winning chance. He's got to take care of the football this week, and we are not saying shorten up the passing game either like it was in the first couple games, because we are getting a lot more passes over 15 yards, which is great, but Hundley needs to be much faster with the progressions and his thoughts, which ties into number three, which is Hundley needs to get the ball out quicker. It has been obvious throughout his first three starts that Hundley holds onto the football way too long, taking quite a few sacks and throwing the ball away due to not getting the ball out quick enough. Missed a lot of open receivers as well. We can see those very clearly on the coach's cam. If you pay your $100 to NFL for the Game Pass, those coaches' cams, I mean, you look at football a completely different way when you look at those suckers. So early is on time is late, and late is unacceptable. Or, as Mr. Gruden put it more simply on the telecast on Sunday, if you wait, you're late.
Thanks, Chucky.
What do we got? Number four, right? Green Bay has to put the pressure on Ben Roethlisberger.
Please.
Now, Matthews is going to be struggling because of the groin injury, but he did record a sack and looked much better against the Ravens, for the rest of the way he's been playing earlier this season. And Nick Perry has a quality pass rusher as well this past week. So there's a lot going on there to get pressure on Ben Roethlisberger. But I think Brooks and Beagle are going to have to be into that mix so we can keep fresh legs out there throughout the course of the game. And then, of course, last but not least, slow down Le'Veon Bell. Green Bay is currently ranked number 11 in rushing defense. Would you believe that we are a pretty decent rushing defensive team?
That's got to be a typo.
And I said that from week one. I mean, watching the Seattle game, look at how we shut down Eddie Lacy and company up there in Seattle.
Okay. We're talking stopping the run defense, not
the run defense,
rushing
not the passing
passing
defense.
Okay.
Yeah. No, stopping the running defense, stopping Le'Veon Bell. We are number 11 in the NFL, and when we're going up against one of the best running backs, it's going to be a tougher order. But we've kind of held Adrian Peterson in check as well sometimes. So if we can slow down Le'Veon Bell, it'll definitely slow down the Pittsburgh offensive attack. So that is going to be one tall order this week. I would expect to see a much better game than many are predicting. I think we're 14-point underdogs at this point.
Yeah.
I've never seen a line like that. It's definitely going to be closer than 14. Knock on wood. Pittsburgh's a much better all-around football team, but stranger things have happened on Sunday Night Football. I have to wait and see. See.
And it's going to be interesting because the Steelers, their home crowd in Pittsburgh, is as close to Lambeau Field and Lambeau fans as the AFC can get.
Absolutely.
So there's some diehard Steelers fans. They travel well. They're going to be at home. They're going to be amped up. Terrible towels everywhere. Maybe we can use that as a distraction to stick one in there in a hurry. Win the coin toss.
It's our color.
We'll just tell them that. Win the coin toss, accept the ball, try to put the crowd out of the game at least somewhat.
Hurry up offense. Boom. Touchdown. Off and running.
Oh, yeah.
I like it. Now, winning this one losing this one does not hurt our playoff scenario. It makes it a hell of a lot harder.
True.
But we could lose this game and still be in pretty good shape. So I ran some numbers. I looked at the schedules, and my scenarios look like the following. I'm going to say that the Lions lose 2 more games, and they will finish out the season at 10-6. I think the Carolina Panthers will lose 3 more games, one of those being to us, and they will finish up the season at 10-6. I think the Seahawks are going to lose 2 more games, and they are going to finish up at 10-6. Now, the kicker here is the Falcons. The Falcons, I think, have the toughest schedule left in the NFC for the stretch. I think they could lose a potential 3 more games and go 9-7 because their schedule is brutal. So put that all together. 10-6, 10-6, 10-6, 9-7 for the Falcons. I think the way that would shake out puts the Lions in the tiebreaker situation over everybody else. So if we were to run the table, we would go 11-5 and be in position number 5 because I think there's a snowball's chance in hell we actually win the North this year with the way the Vikings defense is playing as of late. So we are definitely playing for wild card stakes at this point. And there's only 2 of those. So I think if we win out 11-5, make the playoffs, no problem. If we were to lose to Pittsburgh, then obviously the best we could be is 10-6. Now, the kicker is that we have to win out the rest of the schedule after we lose to Pittsburgh. And if we win out the rest of the schedule, that means we will have the tiebreaker over the Panthers, we'll have the tiebreaker over the Seahawks, and we will be able to then make it in because the Falcons will go 9-7. So it really hinges on the Falcons to lose 3 games because if the Falcons go 10-6, remember we lost to the Falcons, that then comes down to conference tiebreakers and 3 ways with the Lions and all this other stuff. So pray, whoever is playing the Falcons, that's who you cheer for this week and for the rest of the season because we need the Falcons to be less than 10-6. If we drop 2 games, then we're done. At that point, Rodgers doesn't have to come back. But if we can keep winning, absolutely Rodgers should come back because if the team's healthy, we can make a run deep in the playoffs. We did it in 2010. I mean, we were literally on the brink of disaster and came back. I got a giant placard of every single game of 2010 on the wall behind me. So I relive it every time I walk into my studio. So I know how 2010 went down and we won the Super Bowl that year. So it's not over yet, people. I think we need to start praying. I think we need to start worshiping Lombardi and Lambeau and Willie Wood and Ray Nitschke and everybody that you can think of because we need a lot of help. But at the same time, it's not obtainable. We just need to put some things together. And I think we're right on the cusp of that happening, to be quite honest.
Yeah, it's not over until it's over. And if we beat the Steelers Sunday night,
go, Pack,
they'll
go.
just make it a bit easier.
Yes.
Go, Pack, go.
Run the table.
Go, Pack, go.
Relax and run the table.
Let's do them both. Wow.
That's it. Run the table, relax. Because man, if that could happen, then everybody will be like, McCarthy needs to be coach of the year.
Exactly. We'll all be eating some crow. Well, speaking
Not
of
us, because we're still there. We're like, it looked decent. We just fundamentals and field position killed us against the Ravens. Killed us. I mean, if you have the Ravens game back and you have the New Orleans Saints game back where you're literally in those games, I mean, we're what is that? That puts us at 7-3 and we're in the hunt for the division.
I mean, it's a driver's seat.
It's a 2-game swing. That's what we're talking about. 2-game swing. We were literally that close. So it just didn't fall our way. We just need stuff to fall our way and we'll be good to go.
Amen to that, Troy. Amen.
Yeah.
And as usual, the Green Bay Packers have put out their official dope sheet, this time for Packers at Steelers, Week 12, and we've got the link to the full article at PackersFanPodcast.com/146. The 5-5 Green Bay Packers traveled to the Steel City to play the 8-2 Pittsburgh Steelers Sunday night at 7:30 p.m. Central Time. It will be the second consecutive game against a team from the AFC North as part of a 3-game run in a 4-week span against the division, which will finish with a trip to the mighty Cleveland Browns in Week 14.
Which we can't look past. That has to be a win there.
No. Everything's no looking past anything at this point. Green Bay is 19-15 overall against the Steelers, including 31-25 victory in the Super Bowl, which was a beautiful thing.
That's what my blanket says on my couch behind me.
I can almost see it with my mind's eye. This will be just the second meeting between the two teams since that Super Bowl. And 4 of the last 5 regular season games between the clubs have been decided by 7 points or less.
Well, that means I should bet on the Packers because they'll cover.
Oh, that's a good point. Always looking at the positive, Troy. I love that.
Hey, if I can't win, at least I make some money.
Well, there's that. And hopefully your fantasy team will win. It'll be the trifecta for you, Troy.
Oh, yeah, because I'm on the cusp of the playoffs right now.
Playoffs? Notable connections. Packers head coach Mike McCarthy grew up in Greenfield, a neighborhood just outside of downtown Pittsburgh. He also coached at the University of Pittsburgh for 4 seasons back in the late 80s, early 90s. And former college teammates include Packers punter Justin Vogel, Steelers cornerback Artie Burns, and linebacker Anthony Chiquilo when they were at Miami, and Packers fullback Aaron Ripkowski and Steelers quarterback Landry Jones were both at Oklahoma. And there's a lot of others. You'd be surprised how many tie together. Read the full Sunday Night Football dope sheet at PackersFanPodcast.com/146. Winter is close to arriving, but not quite in Pittsburgh, Troy.
Yep, because season 8 of Game of Thrones is still yet to air. So it'll be 38 degrees at kickoff, mostly clear, so it should be a good night for a Packers victory. Man, this one's tough. I'm going to let you go first because I got to think about it for a minute.
Well, if anybody thinks I'm going to predict a Packers loss, you haven't been listening to this show for 7 seasons. This is going to be way too close, though. I do think we find a way to win and shock a lot of people, but it's going to be close. Packers win 22-21.
I'm going to call Packers 17, Steelers 17. It ends in a tie.
Wow, now that would shock the world.
Just because.
Just because. Hey,
I can't pick this week. I mean, I honestly, I think it's a loss, to be honest, but stranger things have happened. I mean, I think it'll be somewhere between 17 and 23 points for both sides in that window. So either it's 23-17 Steelers, 23-17 Packers, or 20-17 Packers, or 20-17 Steelers. I think it's in that range. So I think the defenses are going to be really put to the test, and I think the defenses are what's going to win this game. So look for hopefully some defensive turnovers and a pick 6 or 2. That'd be where I think we need the help to win the game this week.
Oh yeah, if HaHa Clinton Dix can get a pick 6 to be the nail in the coffin, that would be fabulous. Oh, we've got people to thank, all of you. Thanks for listening to the podcast, telling friends about the podcast, and also special thanks to our Patreon supporters. Alex J., almost 100 years of thank yous to you for supporting the Packers Fan Podcast at the #1 Curly Lambeau $1 monthly level.
And Jeff Summerfield, go Pack go, as Brett Favre would say, put her in the old vice. Your support of the show at the Brett Favre $4 level is invaluable.
And thank you to Diane Burnett for also pledging your generous support of the podcast at the Favre 4 monthly level.
And while we're remembering the great gunslingers of Packers past, also thanks to the Texas-only Green Bay Packers Fanatics Facebook group, you're rocking the Patreon support at the Brett Favre $4 level as well. Thank you, and go Pack go!
And in honor of Aiden Cassidy's generous support of your Packers Fan Podcast at the Aaron Rodgers $12 level, AR12 himself is trying to recover from his injury as soon as possible. Thank you, Aiden.
Yeah, you guys can also help make the Packers Fan Podcast even better by becoming a Packers Fan Podcast Patreon MVP supporter. It helps us grow the show, bringing you more great content each and every week. Plus, you get a cool reward, too. You can check out all the different levels by visiting patreon.com/Packers Fan Podcast. That's patreon.com/Packers Fan Podcast. You can even go over to PackersFanPodcast.com/support. Make sure to check out our Amazon affiliate links because guess what? Black Friday is right here. Shop, 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 shop. Cyber Monday. And make sure you use it. PackersFanPodcast.com/support or /Amazon to do all of your stuff. It's going to be great.
And thanks again to Alex J., Aiden, Diane, the Texas-only Green Bay Packers fanatics, and Jeff Summerfield for their Patreon support.
Oh my gosh. Then the Packers Fan Podcast Community Facebook group. You guys have been fantastic. We're trying to grow that again. So go to PackersCommunity.com. Talk about whatever you want to talk about during the week, but definitely be on there on Sunday night. Let's go ahead and have a watch party. It's going to be real fun to be able to watch them in prime time and see if we can bounce back from this fantastic week of weirdness in Packer fandom. We'll call it that. But unfortunately, the Packers Fan Podcast is officially over and still not affiliated with the NFL or the Green Bay Packers. But if you can make that happen, remember, media@PackersFanPodcast.com is how you get in touch with us. And again, be one of our Packers Fan Podcast MVP faithful supporters over at PackersFanPodcast.com/support. See how you can make the podcast even better.
And remember to listen to us on the go. We've got that Packers Fan Podcast app. We've got it for iOS. We've got it for Android, and it's totally free. Also, follow us on Twitter @PackersFanPod. Be ready for the Monday Twitter poll. Who knows, depending on how the game goes, what the poll question will be. And also follow me on Twitter, my personal account, @Wayne Henderson.
And I'm at Troy Heinrichs. Once again, Packers Fan Podcast Community Group over on Facebook. That's PackersCommunity.com. Join it up. It's going to be fun to talk about it all with you guys. Some exciting pictures as well from people that go to the game.
Yeah, check those out, definitely. And share your feedback after the Steelers game with the Packers. Go to PackersFanPodcast.com/feedback to get in your thoughts and be part of next week's show. Keep the conversations going, and thank you for listening to the Packers Fan Podcast.
Have a happy holiday season as we kick off Thanksgiving week. Be sure to subscribe in Apple Podcasts as a thank you to us, and leave us a review if you love this episode. Now we're going over to Three Rivers. It's going to be Pittsburgh time. We need to get hyped up. We need to break through that curtain. Let's get excited. Let's cheer along with Aiden. Everybody say it now.
Aiden here saying, go Pack, go. Go Pack, go. Go Pack, go.